Hey guys, today we're going to do a review of declensions in Latin. This is one of the keys to learning Latin. And when we talk about declensions, we're talking about the nouns and adjectives, but especially the nouns for our purposes. And what we need to be able to recognize is that the declensions or the different endings in Latin are equivalent to what we call parts of speech in English grammar. And we have our basic declension chart. And for today, I want to focus on the first declension, but this is something that has to be memorized. You can see here we have our singular and then our plural declensions, and these are our different cases, which we'll talk about today, and of course, practice time and again in learning Latin. So you can see these are the different endings that you see at the end of Latin nouns and adjectives. So again, we're not talking about verbs today, but nouns and adjectives. You can see up here how here it says Latin noun declensions. And so we have our a, and then our I, autumn, is, us, I, o, I, autumn, is, blank, I, is, ios, ibos, and so on the fourth and the fifth, right? But for today, I want to focus on the first declension and kind of walk us through some examples so we can get comfortable with how the different endings or inflections, as they're called, are equivalent to our English parts of speech. So again, this is something that has to be memorized. We're going to put this in the classroom as a chart for easy reference, but this takes a little bit of getting used to, but this helps explain why Latin words have different spellings or different endings, whereas English doesn't, because again, English is a word order language, whereas Latin is an inflected language. So let's take a look at some examples. And what we want to work on today is kind of just a kind of a silly example, but hopefully a useful example, and go through the different endings based on that chart that I just showed you guys. So let's take a look at this first one here, right? So let me put this in italics so kind of show the difference here. So we have this idea that there is a ghost. Well, the word for ghost is umbra, right? And so you can just simply just do this, right? Umbra es, right? And this means there is a ghost, right? This is kind of a dummy subject there, but there is a ghost. And here, this is going back to our first declension, because when we have the subject, the nominative is the subject. And so you can see this is why umbra ends in a, because here if we say there is a ghost, this is the subject of the sentence. And in Latin, the subject is called the nominative, right? So umbra es means there is a ghost. Let's take a look at the next example here, right? The ghost sees a ghost, right? So this one's going to be interesting as well, because we have umbra, so there is the ghost, and then sees we're going to put at the end, but now we're saying sees a ghost, so this is going to be our accusative ending, which in English we call the direct object. So umbra vidit, right? The ghost sees a ghost. If we go back to our declensions again, you can see that in Latin, the accusative is our English direct object. So umbra, the ghost, sees the ghost. Remember, Latin doesn't use a or these, so we're going to add that in our English translation. But you can see this is how we're going from A to AM. So one of the things that you're going to have to get comfortable with, but it's also one of the reasons that we are learning Latin, is in order to improve your English grammar. And so we need to recognize that this is the subject and this is the direct object, but Latin doesn't use parts of speech, namely subject, direct object, indirect object, that kind of stuff, but rather cases. And so we have to get comfortable with the different grammars and terminology between English and Latin. Let's go to the next example here, right? The ghost gives a ghost to a ghost. Again, kind of a silly example, but I want to use the same word to show you the different endings here. So here we have umbra, so that's the ghost. And again, we're going to put the verb at the end. And then giving a ghost, that's umbra, right? But then to a ghost, and then right there. So this one right here, you can see the ghost gives a ghost, that's the direct object, and then to a ghost. And so to a ghost, that is what we call the indirect object in English, basically to or for whom something is done. So if you're giving flowers to your mother is the indirect object, or the mother is in this case. So look at these endings here. We have a, am, and ae, and then dot just means to give, right? So if we go back to our chart here, here's our dative. That's why we have ae right here. So we have a ghost, umbra, gives a ghost, umbram, to a ghost, umbrae. And so that's how we're going from the A to the AM to the AE, because the dative, right, here we're talking about singular, of course, the dative is to or for whom something is done. So what we're trying to do, again, is to try to get you more comfortable with these inflections or these different endings and kind of go back and forth between Latin and English. Let's take a look at another example here, again, kind of our same vocabulary. Here we have the ghost has a ghost. Again, kind of a almost not ungrammatical, but kind of a funny sounding sentence, but it works for us, right? So we have the ghost, right? So here, oops, let me put it in italics for us here. So we have umbra, umbrae, and I'll explain the endings in a moment, right? So that's the ghost has a ghost, umbram, and then habet would be the verb in this case. So literally the ghost of a ghost, but we're going to use the possessive apostrophe here, but the umbrae, umbram habet. So the ghost of the ghost has a ghost, or the ghost has a ghost. So hold on to this right here, because we want to explain these endings, and so we're going to go back to our declension chart. And here we have the ghost, umbra, ghosts, right? Umbrae, or the ghost of the ghost, because genitive means possessive, like genealogy. So this is the umbra umbrae. The ghost has a ghost. And so umbram, once again, is our direct object. The genitive can be a little bit tricky, in my opinion, even for English speakers. The best tip I can give you, if you keep it more formal English, and think of the ghost of a ghost, right? So the friend of my brother. Whereas most of the time, of course, in speaking, we say my brother's friend. But I think it'll help you with the grammar if you keep it in better English and don't use the apostrophe S and just say of, because that's what genitive means. So genitive means of, right? Dative means to or for whom something is done. And so that's going to help explain that one. Let's go back to our exercise here, and let me scroll down a little bit here. And here we have, let me give some space to work with here. Here we have the ghost runs from the ghost. And so once again, we have the ghost, right? And runs, we'll put that at the end. And then we have from the ghost, right? So I'm going to umbre with the macron here. I could use as well, but I'm going to use the ending on purpose here. And then from the ghost is going to be curit, right? So I do need a macron here. I should have set that up, but I didn't do it. But put the little accent mark over here. So here we have the ghost runs, curit, from the ghost. The ablative often is the trickiest to learn, but it basically means some kind of prepositional phrase, from, at, to, and so forth. By is another common one. So if we go back to our charts here, you can see there's our macron mark, which we need to add in the example I just gave. So the umbra, the ghost, runs, curit, umbre, from the ghost. And so the ablative is basically from the ghost. One reason the ablative is a little bit tricky, you have to put in the correct preposition, but also the article, in this case, the. So we have to use our imagination to recognize that in English, we're going to need from the ghost. And so that's where we're getting the umbre. Now we're going to take a look at a couple examples in the plural here, right? Looks like I only have about 4.5 minutes left on this recording time. So if I get cut off, that's okay. We can continue this next week. But hopefully you're getting a better sense of these inflections and declensions. So take a look at the plural. We're going to do the same thing, except the only thing now we have different endings, right? So we need to recognize these endings, I, autumn, is, for the plural first declension nouns, right? And we'll talk about in class how to recognize what declension nouns belong to, but for today, let's just focus on the different endings. So if I go to our examples here, right, here we have there are ghosts, right? This one's going to be pretty easy, right? We're just going to say umbrai sunt, right? Because sunt means are. Again, we're going to add the there. But if we go back to our declension chart, you can see the umbrai, because here's plural, here's nominative plural. So umbrai sunt means there are ghosts. All right, let's take a look at another example here, right? So we're basically doing the same thing. The only thing we're doing now is putting the words in the plural, which is going to require different endings. So here we have the ghosts, and here we have umbrai. See the ghost, umbres, and then vident. So again, I'm going to need my macron mark here, which I don't have here using this software, but the ghosts see the ghost, umbrai, umbres, vident. So if I go back to my declension chart here, which again is going to have to be memorized, we have the ghost, here's our plural, umbrai, vident, umbres. So here's our accusative, because remember, accusative is the direct object, right? It's the object of having or seeing in this case, right? So if I say I see you, you are the direct object in English grammar. Well, again, Latin doesn't use cases, right? It uses, or rather, English doesn't use cases, but Latin does, so we have to memorize the different endings for this. Let's take a look at another example here. We only got a couple of minutes here to do this. So let's take a look at this next one here, right? The ghost, give ghost to the ghost. So we have the ghost, right? Give, I'll put that at the end. And then umbres, right? And then umbris, and then dant. So umbrai, umbres, umbris, dant, right? So this one, to the ghost, this one, right, is going to be the dative plural. So let's go back and look at the chart here. This actually might be a good one to end on for today, as a matter of fact. So let's go back and take a look at this here. So the ghost, umbrai, right? So we're talking plural. Umbrai, the ghost, give ghost, umbres, to the ghost, umbris, so is. And then dant is going to be the plural form of the verb on that one. So once again, the ghosts, umbrai, give ghosts, umbres, to the ghost, umbris. So we go back and look at our example here. The ghost, umbrai, give, right, dant, ghost, umbres, to the ghost, umbris. So we'll be doing more of this. We'll kind of save these other two maybe for next time. But I really think especially the nominative, accusative, and dative, which we've kind of done here as well as above with these as well, that the ablative and genitive can take a little bit of time to get more used to, especially the ablative. But we want to do more exercises like this. Next week I'll do with the second declension, and you'll see it's very much the same concept. We just have to learn the different endings. Okay, hopefully this was helpful, and we will talk to you soon.